Last week on Newswave, we discussed a game that just came out after multiple delays and really just disbelief from the community, and that's The Day Before. And while it did come out and just got absolutely crushed online with reviews on Steam and just general consensus in gaming communities, things have taken a turn for the worse today, to the point where, while, again, I know it's been kind of discussed as a scam, it might actually be taking a turn into the fraud and scam territory, and we'll discuss that here today, because I don't think I've ever seen anything like this before. So if you guys enjoy the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. So if you're unaware what I'm talking about with The Day Before, here's the initial announcement. This is over on Gamatsu, open world survival MMO The Day Before, announced for PC. Originally, it was due out Q2 2021, and I remember seeing this when it was first announced. I said, wow, that looks really good for a developer and publisher that I've never actually heard of or played any of their games. This was January 27th, 2021, and it was going to Steam for PC. It immediately jumped to the top of wishlist all across Steam, became the most wishlist game on the platform, period. And a lot of that had to do just with the trailer they showed. Looked genuinely incredible at times. Like, for people who were hoping to eventually get something like a Last of Us MMO, or really it was like a Last of Us like cross between Division, the survival game where you can go online and play with your friends, massive multiplayer. It was a concept that PC gamers obviously would have been very, very interested in, with other popular games like DayZ or what have you there. But as we go along here, things start to become very questionable, and things started to really stink around this project. As we got to their initial release window, they made a statement here that they feel and understand the great responsibility that they're facing with enormous gratitude in their hearts. We're pleased to announce that The Day Before is switching to the new Unreal Engine 5 technology, and in this regard, we inform you that the new release date of the game will be March 1st, 2023. So that was a delay that seemed kind of strange. It's like, okay, now you're gonna shift over to Unreal Engine 5. I guess if they were originally using Unreal Engine 4, they figure, hey, let's future-proof this thing. It became much more popular than we were originally thinking it would after that announcement and trailer. Let's push it off. Let's make sure we do this right. So I feel like while people were kind of raising their eyebrows a bit, they at least tried to convince themselves somewhat, like understanding, okay, maybe this is something for the better, right? And now we just have to wait another, what is this, March 1st? This would have been like another 10 months until the game comes out. Well, we come up to that release date, and they ended up delaying it again. And this time, I feel like it was a week or two before that release. That felt very much last minute. And they released a statement saying that Steam blocked their game page at the request of a private individual because of the name The Day Before. Now, they go on to mention that there's a trademark dispute, essentially, around the title for the game, and apparently they had to push it out into the future so that they could win a case around all of this, right? So they say they make the difficult decision to postpone the launch to November 10th, 2023. The game, of course, just came out, 4 or 5 days ago in early access. So that didn't end up being the final release date for it. But apparently they said that they had won the trademark dispute and that they were ready to roll. Okay, we're going to release this thing. And again, it came out 4 days ago now, and hasn't gone well on Steam. And you know what's really bad? When you have your announcement that the game is out and you get hit with one of these community guideline notes, which this is the announcement of a game on Steam, and people feel the need to drop one of these community notes in there, which is basically to add context, or at times just outright debunk a post on X, saying the game was falsely advertised for years as an MMO survival game and as an extraction shooter. The game's Steam page, as linked in the original post, clearly states this: read reviews before purchasing the game, which, as you can see, has not gone over well. Overwhelmingly negative, 8,430 reviews. And the thing that's really telling, a lot of these reviews, as you can see, we scroll through, have a little text at the top here. The product was refunded. So the way it works on Steam, if you're unaware, you have 2 hours to play a game that you buy and decide if you want to keep it. If not, you can refund it. Steam is very good about this. You don't have to like talk to customer service, a person on the other end of a phone line, nothing like that. You just click the button. You might maybe type out why you're refunding it, and they send it back to your PayPal, your bank, or they'll put it on your Steam wallet if you just want to then go buy something else. That one's a bit more immediate from what I've noticed, but nonetheless, it is very easy to at least get your money back on Steam, provided you have not played more than 2 hours. If you have, there's a bit more legwork, to my understanding, to get that done. And as we're seeing here, a lot of refunds going through. Now, I did buy this game, and really I was like, you know what, let's see what we have here. Maybe I can discuss and talk about this a bit more in the video. And who knows, maybe I can give some advice, some of my thoughts as to how they can improve the game, because I already saw that it was overwhelmingly negative. Well, I wasn't able to play the game. So I go in, all the servers were full. I posted a kind of a clip on Twitter or X, just kind of showing my experience there. It was pretty annoying. You made a character. I went in, trying to click through to different servers, and they were all full. There were at least a bunch to pick from. Everyone was full, and then the ones that even just said hi for like the population count, that wouldn't let me in either. So I never got to play the game. After about 15 minutes of waiting, clicking to try to go in, okay, waiting, clicking to go in, I just said, you know what, I was already kind of sketchy around this game. I'm just going to go ahead and refund it. And probably a good idea that I did that, because so with early access, you know what you're getting into, right? This is a game that they have launched before it's technically ready for its retail release. So you understand, there'll be some bugs, there'll be some glitches, and it's going to be a process where the developers will even technically work with the community to figure all of this out. Well, as I managed to catch some people's streams and just videos who were able to get into the servers and play the game, it looked bad, like really bad. Nowhere near the multiple trailers they released along with gameplay prior to release. So, I mean, we have enemies glitching through walls, crazy things happening with other characters that might run past you where I saw a few where they would get massive heads, like they would just fill up the entire room. The shooting didn't look great. The voice acting wasn't good. The conversations would lock you in at times. You had to reset the entire game. It looked like an early access game that was even earlier than that, like early access. But this is a game that's come out ahead of its product release, or it being deemed to be the final build. So, of course, the developers behind this will be working through this, working with the community to create a better game in the long run. It's going to be another No Man's Sky situation, maybe a Cyberpunk redemption story, and it's gone. So it is that quick. They have already shut down the studio, apparently. Like they are out. This is from Fantastic, which, by the way, they list the games that they have done in the past. Started looking into those, which we'll get to in a second. Say, today we announced the closure of Fantastic Studio. Unfortunately, the day before has failed financially, and we lack the funds to continue. All income received is being used to pay off debts to our partners. So on December 8th, they announced that a massive patch, a large patch, was being developed to fix a lot of the issues that were coming in the first 24 hours or so of launch. Okay, so they're listening, they're paying attention. And apparently, 3 days later, they said it's not something we can feasibly do, and we're just shutting everything down. In fact, their website just has the same message on it. That's it. There's nothing else there. They say we invested all our efforts, resources, and man hours into the development of The Day Before, which was our first huge game. We really wanted to release new patches to reveal the full potential of the game, but unfortunately, we don't have the funding to continue the work. It's important to note that we didn't take any money from the public during the development of The Day Before. There were no pre-orders or crowdfunding campaigns. We worked tirelessly for 5 years, pouring our blood, sweat, and tears into the game. At the moment, the future of The Day Before and Prop Night is unknown, but the servers will remain operational. We apologize if we didn't meet your expectations. We did everything within our power, but unfortunately we miscalculated our capabilities. Creating games is an incredibly challenging endeavor. So they list all these games here. All right, and they even just mentioned Prop Night in there. I started looking through some of these games. I think 3 out of 4 of them, well, I guess at this point we count The Day Before, 4 out of 5 of them mention on like the Steam community boards that the developers abandon the project. There was 2 of them, I believe, that were still in early access, and it's just like, yeah, this is what happens with early access. There was one where it went on for about a year in that Steam community thread, basically just trying to come to terms with the game not being complete and the developers just kind of leaving on them. So this isn't necessarily their first rodeo in the sense of let's make a game, let's sell it technically, and then we're just going to take off. And I do want to come back to that soon because while they didn't technically take pre-orders or crowdfunding, they did take money. And I think that is important to note as they seem to be trying to downplay that a bit. But of course, they have a subreddit, and they decided to start searching through everything about this game because, well, as you can imagine, their subreddit is just absolute chaos currently. And one user here found a bunch of assets that they used, and it is a much more sizable list than I was expecting. So I want to be very clear with games, especially for smaller developers, you can say indie developers, sure, these asset stores exist to just kind of help them a bit in terms of, look, there are going to be buckets we're going to place around the environment. The amount of time it would take us to either outsource or create it ourselves makes more sense to spend 10 or 20 bucks and just buy the asset in the Unreal Engine store and just drop it in that way, right? It's not something that's necessarily integral to the game, but it does help to build the environment that you're going to be navigating through. However, this list is pretty lengthy, like to the point where you do ask, and people are in fact doing this, was this an asset flip to try to just make a bunch of money in the first week of sales and then get out, and that's kind of it? Sort of take advantage of Steam's 2-hour sales window because, well, we have some numbers that are apparently getting out there for this game. And I mentioned we're thinking it's like a 50% refund rate, and it is mentioned here. About 201,000 copies sold. 91,000 roughly were refunded, which just was some basic math. This game was $40 because Steam does take 30% cut. This game brought in a revenue of anywhere between $2.5 to $3 million, and a lot of that was based on the idea of pushing trailers that seemingly were not at all representative of the game. And you can kind of match those numbers up a bit with some of the information we get from SteamDB with like the all-time peak for concurrent player count. That's not just overall players that have ever logged in. That's just like a peak concurrent count that they had hit at any given time, being 38,000 players. You can, I'm sure, exponentially raise that to get to the actual number of people that have purchased. Hard to say exactly how many would have refunded it, like completely, but based on the numbers that are out there, I wouldn't be shocked if it was indeed roughly 100,000 copies of this game that sold in the first few days before they decided to shut everything down, delete their Discord, and I have a feeling their Twitter and other social media presences probably going to get erased pretty soon. And that's kind of the question now. Was this entire situation with the day before a way to scam people out of a bunch of money in the first few days before them eventually shutting down? Was this always the plan, or did they legitimately get in over their heads and realized, oh, we're not going to be able to fix this thing, but also we can't refund every single copy we took in, so we're just out of here? I am curious how Steam responds to this, and if there's any plan to just do an outright refund for everyone who purchased this game, because that would be a drop in the bucket for Valve, of course, and it would work to provide more confidence in these different early access games, because this will indeed put a mark on the idea of early access games going forward. But wow, what an incredible development for the day before. I figured it was going to come out and it wasn't going to be a very good game based on the way that they were approaching the launch of this thing with multiple delays, but even with a rough launch, as we've seen, you can work to fix the game over time, but either they didn't want to do that or they got enough money, so they were ready to take off. But let me know what you guys think about all this down below with the day before, especially if you were someone who was maybe following it. Were you expecting something like this to happen? And if you purchased it and maybe played it for more than 2 hours, how do you feel about them taking off after 4 days? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.